let's talk about our first storyline here, which is, can LAFC repeat again as champions? And Heath Pearce is someone that has worked for LAFC in the past and has covered them quite extensively.
LAFC tat on his arm.
He does. I think he's got it like on his lower back. But that's cool if you've got it there.
One's a supporter shield. It's an actual shield, and then the other one, because that's for the fan in me. And then the other one is.
Can they do it again? Can Steve Cherundolo do it again? John Thorrington, can they do it again?
I mean, you just go and you look at these. The season and the importance of, again, when you look at, I go back to Seattle Sounders, right? And the fact that they've won everything, I think there's something to that for LAFC to look and say, okay, we won Supporter Shield, right? We've been close in CONCACAF Champions League. We've won the league now. We won the MLS Cup. You look at the other competitions as you start to fill that out. Of course you want to repeat, but you know that like that's a really long journey to go and do that, especially with, hopefully they avoid some of these playoff ramifications, but you look at some of that and you're like, that's a long journey, and you start to say, how do you actually fill out that trophy cabinet? And if there is a priority on Leagues Cup or Champions League or whatever, so I think it's still certainly the favorites in terms of the quality that they have, the team that they have. They're going to be tough to beat at home this entire season, I guess. But repeating, I think that there's less of a chance of them repeating than somebody else winning it. Maybe that's just simple math, but like they're still probably the early season favorites to do well though.
Okay, and how about their adversaries in the final, Chuck? Since you played for Philadelphia Union, do you think they have a chance to get back to the final and then potentially win a trophy, which has been eluding them for so long? I know they've won Supporter Shield, but like MLS Cup or an Open Cup.
The Union?
Yeah, the Union.
The Union do have an opportunity just because of cohesion, and they have a quality squad. Because cohesion doesn't always work. If in the case of Chicago Fire, they basically went with the same team and they weren't good enough, and they lost their best player to Aston Villa. So I think Chicago Fire, just because of that same reason, they're going to be down. I think the Union are still going to compete. And for LAFC, they added Aaron Long, right? So they're betting on Aaron Long getting back to his best with LAFC and their style of play, considering that they want to keep the ball and it's not just helter skelter. We're going to press and not really play a beautiful possessions type style, attacking and dynamic. So I think with that being said, and they lose, they don't really have a number 9. I don't think they're going to be as strong as they were last year, this LAFC side. So, okay. I mean, the transfer window is still open until April 24th. So they could still bring in a top player up until that point, although I think it's highly likely. I think that player will come in the summer. So I think up right now until they add another number 9, and they don't have a goalkeeper right now. I think John McCarthy's the backup is starting. So I think with that being said, they will not be as strong as they were last year.
But they're still the favorites, I think.
They're still
both of these teams are, I think, the favorites going into it. And Philadelphia take on Columbus Crew at home this weekend.
But with LAFC playing the Galaxy, I think the Galaxy are going to be drastically improved from last season. I think because at center back and center mid, that was kind of a problem for them at the start. They added Mavinga. So Greg Vanney said, I'm going to bet on Mavinga being his best with the Galaxy. And he was going with going. You got
down. Ricky Pooch, who now settled in, right? He
incredible.
Knows yeah.
I think he had a lot of issues off the field last year, Mavinga, that he was dealing with. So I think going to LA, change of scenery, back reunited with his coach, with Mark Delgado and Gaston Brugman in front of the back four. That to me, I think they're going to be improved.
I did an MLS test game, by the way, of Toronto and LA Galaxy, and Toronto's potential is there. But when you looked at LA Galaxy, and again, you talk about that cohesion with Philadelphia Union, they're just a step ahead in terms of, the quality of the player. Memo Rodriguez also joining that team and fitting that style of play, possession based. They just look really clean and good. Like they look so much further along and ready to start a season than Toronto did at that point of that was literally a few days ago. So
in speaking of Toronto, because I think they're going to be one of the most improved teams in the entire league, because if you add Sean Johnson, goalkeeping was atrocious, absolutely atrocious last year. So if you add Sean Johnson, then you add Matt Hedges on top of that because their center backs are poor. Mm-hmm. They have to already be in a different position heading into this season than last year. And you're looking at a front three Bernardeschi and Insigne now have adjusted to the league, and then you bring back Diomande from his days at LAFC with Bob Bradley. That to me seems like they're ready for a run at the championship.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick on them. The issue that I saw with them is they're still working through how they're going to be good. They sat pretty deep in their blocks. They countered decently well without any real success. But for Bernardeschi and Insigne, you could see the quality of just like if they sit sort of like LAFC can do, where they spring out with a few players on the counterattack. They didn't convert on it, but they got down into the box quite a bit with that type of system. And again, almost an entirely brand new back line outside of blanking on his name, the Canadian international right back. And so they've got a lot to work through in terms of incoming players to get on the same page. And you just hope that they can figure that out sooner than later, because you give up points too quick in the name of sort of cohesion, and you can find yourself pretty deep in the table early on in the season.
Or you're just going to make the playoffs anyway, right, Heath? That's the joke. But what I'll say, though, is we look through all the teams, and there's 29 now. We want to talk a little bit about St. Louis because they're the newest team in the league. But, man, there's some great storylines all the way around. You got Thiago Almada, 21-year-old, first active MLS player to ever win a World Cup with Argentina. He had 6 goals and 12 assists last year at Atlanta. A little bit on the down and outs. Can they rebound? Joseph Martinez, Jimmy, plays for Inter Miami. Can he get some revenge and show that he's still healthy? There's so many great stories and narratives.
I saw a piece of content recently where they're asking the players most famous. I think it was today I saw it. And they asked him, and he was like, who's the most famous number in your phone? And he was like, Messi. And it was just like a nice flex. Like, would you call him? And he's like, no, it's a group chat. But I was like, that's kind of wild, dude.
That is wild. Yeah. Must be nice to be
I'm curious, right, Jimmy, how do you feel about SKC this year?
We still need a number 9, well, Alan Polito's there, but
What do you mean we, Jimmy? What do you mean we?
Well,
you don't represent Chivas USA?
Well, yeah, well, that's LAFC now, right? That's Chivas USA 2.0.
You don't think Agata's the guy?
No, listen, I think that we have, I'm a big Shalloway fan as well. Like, there's pieces in place there, but once we didn't get Cristiano Ronaldo, it all just went down. but if Polito can stay healthy, I think that will help a lot. And they have options. I'm cautiously optimistic, like I am every season. And I'm going to be a little bit more wait and see on Sporting Kansas City. They're away to the Portland Timbers this weekend. I do want to give a shout out, though, to the Timbers, who I think have one of the most exciting signings. Evander, who came from Midtjylland in Denmark, has Champions League, Europa League experience. I think he's a hell of a player.
Like 10 million or something they spent on him, right?
They spent a lot on him. And 24-year-old.
Hella money.
Hella dough.
A lot. And, he's replacing Diego Valeri in some capacity of being the club's new number 10. And I'm very, very curious to see how he does in particular. So I'll get my eyes on him.